In the year 1285, the mightiest army on earth marched south. Against them stood a small nation, fragile in size yet unshaken in spirit. To survive, they would need sacrifice, unity, courage, and above all, wisdom. Some names would rise from the fire of battle and live forever in history. Others would fall, yet their blood would demand vengeance and inspire the living to fight on. This is not just the story of war. It is the story of a people who defied the impossible. And now, you will witness a 20-minute journey of tragedy and glory. The fortress of Xiangyang, last great shield of the Southern Song, fell after 6 long years of heroic resistance. With its collapse, the entire Song dynasty crumbled, and the Yuan Empire of the Mongols rose as the mightiest power on earth. To the Mongols, Dai Viet was more than a small neighbor. It was a thorn in their side, standing on a strategic crossroad. And it was also a matter of pride. For this was the land that had once defied them, the land that had scarred the myth of their invincibility. The 9th Prince of the Yuan Emperor led an army drawn from across Asia, the greatest host the world had ever seen. Mongol cavalry, Southern Song infantry, Dali warriors, and even Khmer and Champa archers. At sea, the combined navies of the Mongols and the fallen Song, commanded by Omar, formed the strongest fleet of its age. It was a vast multi-ethnic force uniting the finest arms of Asia, led by generals who had already conquered the world. And now their gaze was fixed on Dai Viet. And so, the clash began between the world's strongest and a tiny kingdom. Dai Viet had no mighty fortresses to shield its borders, and that weakness showed in the lightning pace of the Gwen advance. One by one, the mountain passes and northern outposts fell. The opening of the war was no surprise. Once, the Mongols had ruled only the open battlefield, but years of sieges against the strongest citadels of the world had turned them into masters of assault. And yet the courage of Dai Viet was undeniable. In open combat, they fought the invaders to a standstill, trading blow for blow, sacrifice for sacrifice. But against an enemy superior in both numbers and strength, the choice was grimly clear: retreat or be surrounded and slaughtered to the last man.
A handful of fools thinking bare hands could tame the fury of a storm. I warned the court of the price of defeat. We must surrender as soon as possible. Have they listened? No. Against the Mongols, no army stands. Not even empires 10 times our strength survive their onslaught. If our nation of 3 million dares to fall, how many will remain alive? The men slain or chained as slaves. The women forced into the tents of the conquerors, turned into vessels for their bloodline. That is the fate awaiting us. And yet Tran Hung Dao calls me a coward, mocks me as if I were a timid woman. Tell me, can the lives of an entire people be risked on pride? But in the end, even my own kin, the 2 kings, my cousin and my nephew, chose the path of war. They already had their secret designs, and my warnings meant nothing. To weaken my voice, and those who, like me, urged surrender, they staged what they called the Dian Hong Assembly. They summoned the elder from every corner of the land, asking whether we should yield or fight. And with one roar, the answer shook the hall. Fight! They fed the people's pride, fanned the embers into a raging fire, and I knew then it was over. The king understood well the power of the crowd. Fight! 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 These fools would burn the kingdom, and their flames would consume me too. No. I must find a way to save myself before their madness drags me to ruin. I must contact the Mongol.
Prince Tran, Ichtak's call for surrender was not entirely without reason. Across the world, many kingdoms had bent the knee to the Mongols and survived. Some even prospered under their protection. For Dai Viet, the choice between surrender and resistance was a 50-50 gamble. Fight and win, and you face the certainty of Mongol revenge in the future, with fewer advantages each time. Fight and lose, and you lost everything. From a purely pragmatic view, resistance carried high risk with limited reward. But what set the Tran dynasty apart was not cold calculation, it was spirit. The majority of the royal clan chose to stand and fight, believing freedom was worth any cost. And against all odds, they had both the will and the strength to make good on that choice. Looking back, we cannot help but admire them, not just as strategists or rulers, but as men and women who fought for the ideal of freedom itself.
The capital, once home to hundreds of thousands of bustling households, now lies silent. Millions of soldiers and civilians have already withdrawn to the south. Only 600 warriors remain, bound to a single grim purpose: to hold back the Mongol army for as long as humanly possible. They march straight into the jaws of death, commanded by Tran Bing Trong, a prince whose mother was the last queen of the former dynasty. It began a glorious 7 days of defiance. On the first day, they clashed with the vanguard. 1,000 Mongol scouts riding in hard and fast. The Tan Duc Elite Guard was the most formidable force in all of Dai Viet, swiftly crushing the Mongols' first assault. The invaders had no choice but to withdraw. The Tan Duc force was recruited in a most unusual way. Birth and rank meant nothing. Its ranks were filled with criminals, orphans, and the destitute with nowhere else to turn. They owed loyalty to no lord but the central court, and to the cause of the nation itself. Against an enemy that outnumbered them 1,000 to 1, there would be no return. The tide of foes seemed endless, each wave larger and fiercer than the last. The Mongols had brought the mightiest warriors of their empire. One by one, the soldiers of the Tan Duc fell. With every life spent, the trade of man for man grew ever more costly, and ever more hopeless. The army was far too small to stop an enemy so vast, yet Tran Bing Trong turned to strategy, using every ounce of cunning to hold the invaders in check. cost was horrific for both sides. The elite soldiers of the Tan Duc fell one after another, never to return, many still so young. Their dreams left forever unfinished. On the fourth day, they lost another 100 warriors. By the fifth, only a single squad remained. Togan himself took special notice of the extraordinarily valiant commander leading the enemy.
Good brother, I have waited for you a long time, and I respect heroes like you. To face many with so few, to hold out for so many days, to fight until the last man, you have served your homeland exceedingly well. A talent like yours should not be wasted in death. The UN Empire honors the brave and the skilled. We nurture such men. You and I could stand as brothers in arms, conquering great lands across the known world.
I will never choose the easy path. I have long been ready to die.
Instead of dying here today, come with me, and together we will carve legendary victories that will echo through the ages.
Many have surely surrendered to you.
Many of my brothers in arms today were once like you, enemies who laid down their arms and joined the Empire.
I would rather be a ghost of the South than a king in the North.
Farewell.
The hero gave his life for his homeland. He fought with unmatched courage, surpassing all expectations, holding the enemy at bay for 7 full days. In those 7 days, the High Command withdrew and vanished without a trace. Now, the spirit of the entire Daivia people stands ready for the sacrifices yet to come. And Tran Binh Trong is the first to fall, the one who lit the great flame that will burn on.
Thanks to Tran Binh Trong holding the enemy for 7 days, we escaped. But after taking Thang Long, they have begun to read our path of retreat. I must buy more time, at least a few more days. Yet with Sugetu marching north, our space narrows with every step. Soon there will be no road left to run. This war is a race against time. Will I be captured first, or will the enemy's supplies run dry before then? Nantong suggested a marriage, a princess given to Togon, both to delay him and to place eyes and ears within his camp. I thought of one name, Princess Tien Tui. Beautiful. But her heart had once strayed to Tran Khandu, a reckless cousin of ours. Worse, she had already been promised to the son of Tran Hung Dao. The scandal forced me to banish Khan Du, strip him of rank, cast him into common life. Only the Mongol threat brought him back to service. To send Thian Tui away would be to solve two problems at once. Yet she refused with fury. She swore she would rather die than be wed into the house of our enemy. So then, another name. Princess Antu, graceful, virtuous, and loyal. When she heard the plan, her heart broke. That night, she wept in dreams, haunted by visions of a dark future. Alone, a woman among the Mongols. But courage and her love for our dynasty burned brighter than fear. She chose sacrifice. "I will be the eyes and ears of Dai Viet at Togun's side," she whispered. Her wedding to Togun bought us 3 precious days. 3 days to scatter our forces, to retreat once more. In those nights, Antu played her role well, a gentle wife, yet also the spy she had promised to be. The enemy are no fools, but tell me, when has a man ever resisted the snare of beauty? What set the Tran royal family apart from so many other dynasties around the world was their unity and their willingness to sacrifice. 2 figures stand out. Tran Bin Trong, for example, was no ordinary noble. His mother was Lai Chong, the last queen of the Li dynasty, and his father descended from the Li royal line. He carried the blood of 2 royal houses, exactly the kind of character you might expect in a novel to one day claim the throne. But in reality, he chose the path of sacrifice, dying in battle like countless others to defend his homeland. Another example was Princess Antu, remembered as one of the consorts of Prince Togon. She bore him 3 children, but Vietnamese history records her as one of the earliest examples of a female spy, giving her life in service to her country in a different way. And then there was Tran Hung Dao. His family had bitter rivalries with the branch of Tran Tan Tong. In fact, his own father had his wife taken by the king's father, and on his deathbed urged Tran Hung Dao to reclaim the throne by force. By all logic, Hung Dao should have been the least motivated to protect that royal line. Yet when the Mongols came, he became the strongest advocate for resistance, dedicating everything to defend the dynasty he might once have been expected to overthrow. This was the strength of the Tran family. Yes, they quarreled. Yes, rivalries ran deep. But unlike the bloody power struggles seen in many royal courts elsewhere, the Trans were more like a neighbor's family, arguing and resenting each other in peacetime. But when danger struck, closing ranks to defend one another with everything they had.
Core, the war between the Mongols and Dai Viet was a war of attrition. The Vietnamese used the scorched earth strategy, burning crops, emptying villages, denying the enemy every source of food. For an army as massive as the Mongols, this was deadly. The larger their numbers, the faster they consumed supplies, and no matter how well they guarded their supply lines, the Vietnamese were always there to harass and disrupt. The Mongols knew this, which is why their only hope was a lightning war, find and crush the Tran royal army, or capture the 2 kings themselves before famine set in. The Tran rulers, on the other hand, avoided direct confrontation, deliberately stretching out the conflict. At times, the two kings even acted as bait, luring the Mongols deeper while buying time. There were no hidden tricks here. Each side knew the other's intent. The question was simple: who would achieve their goal first? It was a race against time, a deadly game of catch me if you can. The last stand of Tran Binh Trong and his 600 warriors has often been called the Asian version of the 300 Spartans. It was the same story. A small band of men facing an overwhelming horde, holding their ground at a choke point that neutralized the enemy's numbers. With a river on one side and a swamp on the other, Binh Trong forced the Mongols to attack only from the front. What made his Tanduk soldiers unique was their formation. Shield bearers in the first rank, long spears and halberds in the second, and archers protected in the third. Each of these compact units could operate on its own, resisting cavalry charges and enemy archers alike. For 7 days they held, their phalanx nearly impossible to break head-on. Most of their casualties came not from close combat, but from waves of Mongol arrows raining down. It was a slow bleed, and like the Roman legions trapped at Karrhei, they were cut down to the last man. Yet their sacrifice bought precious time, and etched their place among history's greatest last stands.